for now. So welcome, ladies. So I'm really excited because I'm starting today. With your help, I'm starting a series of webinars. It's free webinars that during which I'm going to share my experience. So Yana, can you please a little bit introduce yourself, just very briefly?
So my name is Yana. I am 18 years old and I graduated from high school in 2021. So now I'm preparing for the SAT exam again because I took it and I'm not really satisfied with my score. So I want to retake the exam, and honestly, I had lots of like sessions with Yulia. So we worked before, and now I'm preparing to apply to the American universities again. So for the 2023 class. So yes.
It's all worth it for sure.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Lena, what about you?
Hello, I'm Milena. I'm 16 and I took SAT as well. And I'm also not satisfied with my score. And I would like to take it again on March 12th.
Nice, very good. Awesome. And so I've decided to start with history passages, the SAT sessions with history passages, because they're the most difficult ones for students. And not only for Russian speaking students, for international students, they're difficult for all students. Even for American students who take SAT who take history classes in school, they're still very difficult. Let alone students who have never really studied American history, right? Even though they say that the SAT tests your ability to work with complex texts, you don't really need to have a lot of background. Really, having the background helps. So, and the problem with the history, again, like I said, the background oftentimes for students. And number two is very complex sentences. The sentences are just horrible, you have seen, right? So it's the 18th century way people used to speak, or 19th century way people used to speak. So very difficult for us to see, to realize, analyze. So let me just see, somebody has messaged me. Okay, so just a second. I was thinking it's from your group. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to, first of all, we will talk about Federalist papers and Anti-Federalist papers. It's like the beginning of the American history, so to speak. That's when the history of America was created, just a couple of years after America was created, around this time. And we will talk about the background, the historical background of the Federalist papers and Anti-Federalist papers. We will also talk about different sentence types that you can find on history passage. And then not only history, but history a lot. And then we will analyze one passage about that uses Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. So can you tell me, what do you know about Federalist papers? It's okay not to know anything, but I want to know your background.
Honestly, not so much, and honestly, nothing.
Me too.
Okay, right. And you're expected to know that, right? When you take the test, right? I mean, more, yes. It really helps. Because every time you see the blurb at the beginning, right on the top. Well, if you know, like if John Jay, oh wow, you know it's Federalist papers, and when you know what Federalist papers are, you already have your mindset, the right mindset. Yeah. So yeah. Let's start. I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation, and I will make the PowerPoint presentation available to you. So if you, upon request, you absolutely can have it. So let's share. Okay, so I'm just going to do this. Oops, no, that's not what I want, right? Okay, let's start from the very beginning. History passages. So Federalist papers. I want to share slideshow, right? So you probably know how America was created, right? So we had the first Europeans, there were the Spanish people from Spain, the Spanish explorers, then people from Great Britain who started coming to the New World. And they, first of all, they were just looking for precious metals like silver and gold. So that's how the Jamestown colony, Virginia, was established in 1605. So I believe 1605, 1607. Then that's how the Pilgrims came. Well, the Pilgrims were not looking for gold. Some of them were looking for some the territory, for land. Others were escaping Great Britain for religious reasons, right? So that's how very accidentally the Massachusetts colony was established. And as a result, by, well, I would say probably the end of the 18th century, we had 13 colonies, right? We had Massachusetts, we had Virginia, we had Jamestown. You can see it on my test prep Instagram account. I've been playing with you a little bit with this, right? So we had Massachusetts, we had Virginia, we have Georgia, we had North Carolina, we had South Carolina, we have New York, we had New Jersey, we had Pennsylvania, we had New Hampshire, all in total 13 colonies. And well, Great Britain was fighting France for the territories, because we not only had Spain and England on the territory of New England, especially the current day America. We also had France. And that's what happened in 1803 when they purchased the Louisiana territory, which was like half of the, if you want to look up Louisiana territory, it's like 1/3 of the American continent, like the Midwest. That's what America got from Napoleon. So in 1803, anyway, before. So we had 13 colonies. And Great Britain was fighting France in the French and Indian War. And Great Britain actually won, and France lost all of its territory in Canada. But France, Great Britain got really ran out of money, and they wanted to tax the colonists. The colonists said, well, it's fine, but no taxation without representation. We didn't have the colonies didn't have any representation in the British Parliament, and that's how the Revolutionary War started. In 1775, and it ended in 1783. France helped the colonists. Now, soon we will call them Americans. And defeated Great Britain, right? So that's how America. So Americans, kind of the first America was established, right? 13 colonies got together, fought Great Britain over the taxation without representation. So during this time period, what document was used? Articles of Confederation. This was actually like articles of friendship. So those were just absolutely 13 very separate colonies. We had northern colonies like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire. We had middle colonies like Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and southern colonies like Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. And they had very different interests. They really had very little in common, except for the common enemy, Great Britain. But anyway, Articles of Confederation was just some kind of an agreement that helped them, kind of regulated their relationship. There was no central government whatsoever. They couldn't collect taxes. There was no central government. They couldn't collect taxes. It was just so ineffective. And when the colonies defeated England in 1783, now they had a question. So looks like we are going to have, but no, now what? Right? What if Great Britain, which was much more powerful in terms of army, what if Great Britain comes back and defeats us this time? So they had to unite against the common enemy. Again, but they had very different interests, right? So anyway, they got together, the best men of those times got together in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and for several months, I believe 4 months, they were sitting there and right behind the closed doors and windows, and they were writing the Constitution. By the way, I'll send you in our group, and whoever is watching this video, I can send you some additional movie recommendations. You're going to enjoy this whole learning more about the background of those times. So they got together, they wrote the Constitution in 1787. It was drafted. What was the Constitution? Well, the Constitution didn't talk about our personal rights. It just talked about the government. So we have a strong central government. We have 3 branches. We have legislative, we have judicial, and we have legislative passes laws. Legislative is the Senate. Yeah, passes laws. Judicial is in charge of making sure not a single other branch breaks those laws. So it's Supreme Court. And then executive, it's the president. So make sure that, well, the laws are acted upon, so to speak, right? It executes laws. Again, 3 branches: judicial, legislative, and what did I say again? Executive, 3 branches. So that's what the Constitution said. We have 3 branches, and they are all equally strong. Not a single one is stronger than the other. Then they talked about the Senate, how the Senate, it has 2 chambers. So it's this Congress. The Congress has 2 chambers, Senate and House of Representatives, and how they are elected. So House of Representatives 4 years, Senate is every 6 years, right? The president is elected for 4 years. So that's kind of civics, basic civics. And that's what the Constitution is about. It doesn't protect residents, not so ever. It's all about the government. So anyway, 1787, Constitution is ratified. And now, like, remember I said we had very different states and they had very different interests. Now they all have to agree whether they want to sign the Constitution or not. And during that period, we had 2 very different movements. The first movement is called Federalist movement. So Federalists were saying we need to have a federal government, which is a strong government. So we have a strong central government. Like, so right now we have a federalist system, and we have also some power on the states, on the state level. So basically, if you see like a sheet of paper, this is the power. In America, they're saying it's divided in half. Well, they will be probably debating over this, but they'll say half of the powers belong to the federal government. For example, powers like declare wars, sign peace treaties, collect income taxes, federal like taxes, and a few others. And then we have state laws. On the state law, for example, police laws, school laws, marriage laws are on the state level, right? It's very interesting federalist structure. Anyway, so strong, remember, strong federalist system, right? Right now it's in Washington, D.C., and some powers on the state level. Anyway, so this during this period, 1787, 1788, 85 essays were written by some of the best men of those times: Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison. So they wrote 85 essays persuading others that we do need to have a strong federalist government, federal government. So, and they specifically wrote those essays and published them in local newspapers to convince New Yorkers that we need this constitution with a strong central government. Why New Yorkers? Well, because New York was a very popular state back then and very powerful one. They couldn't really agree on the constitution, ratify the constitution, leaving New York behind. Overall, in America, a law becomes a law if 2/3 of the states vote for it. So they had 2/3 of the colonies to vote for the constitution. Make sense? So those were Federalist papers. And the SAT history passages oftentimes publish those, contain those Federalist papers. If you see the name of Alexander Hamilton, if you see the name of John Jay, or you see the name of James Madison, chances are this might be a Federalist paper, one of them. Okay, remember this, right? Okay, anti-federalist papers. So when we have people arguing for a strong central government, obviously we will have people arguing against a strong federal central government. So they were saying that the central government is going to take over all of their powers, and the average man is going to be powerless in front of a strong government. Remember this, they just got rid of the tyrant in Britain, so they didn't want to have anything similar to the one, right? They were saying when people absolutely had no representation, right? So they wanted freedom. They fought for that freedom in the Revolutionary War against Great Britain, and now give it away to the central power government. No, they particularly advocated the Bill of Rights, which was actually written after the Constitution was ratified in 1789. So it was signed by the majority of the states. The Bill of Rights, those great men returned to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they worked on the rights, the Bill of Rights. With the Bill of Rights are 10 amendments to the US Constitution. Overall, there are 27 amendments. Imagine that the Constitution was written in 1789, well, it was ratified. Since then, America has had only one constitution. This is the only constitution, but it has been changed 27 times through those amendments. The first, again, 10 amendments are called the Bill of Rights. They tell you, you can always, see what they say. It's about freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom to bear arms, freedom to not be searched without any warrant from court's warrant, freedom or right to be not to be persecuted for the same offense, the freedom to be persecuted in a normal manner, means so without any unjust punishment, etc. So I really recommend that you do check out the 10 amendments, and they're really easy to, more or less easy to read and see, what the Americans mean when they say, when they talk about their rights. I highly recommend that you watch Constitution PBS by Constitution PBS. It's a series of 4 documentaries about how the Constitution was created and why, and how the Bill of Rights were written and what they mean. It's called Constitution USA by PBS, Public Broadcasting Station. So do you have any questions about what Federalist papers were and what Anti-Federalist papers were?
I think now everything's clear.
No.
So no.
Makes sense, right? Okay. So the Federalists won, pretty much, right? But Anti-Federalists also made sure that we have 10 amendments. Okay, so we have the background for today's class, right? Now let's talk about what makes those sentences, those passages so difficult to read. And I'll first of all discuss those types, and then we will analyze. The first type of sentences you will see is sentences with fronted adverbials and participles. An adverbial is something that describes a reason something happens or place something happens, right? So, for example, instead of saying the cat was lying on the top of my desk, we can say on the top of my desk, comma, my cat was lying, right? So that would be a sentence with a fronted adverbial. Or you can even say on the top of the desk was my cat lying, when we change the verb, the predicate, and the subject. Participles, fronted participles. For example, I was sick and tired of studying, so I went to bed, for example. That's a normal sentence, traditional sentence. With a fronted participle, it would be sick and tired of studying, comma, I went to bed. Sick and tired of studying, comma, I went to bed. This is simple sentences. You will see on, on the SAT, they are more complex, but the structure is the same. Cumulative sentences, when we have lots and lots of clauses, dependent and independent in the same sentence. Periodic sentences, when we have lots of dependent sentences, dependent clauses, and the main clause is at the very, very end. That's why student, and the main clause expresses the most important idea, right? The main clause. And sometimes students just get so lost by those initial sentences, right? They don't even see, they lose the main clause, right? And the last type of sentences that really it blows my mind, this type of sentences is called cleft sentences, from the verb cleave, which means divide. So what happens, and I'll show you several examples of those cleft sentences. What happens is when you really complicate something that doesn't need to be complicated. But why do you do that? Well, to sound smart, I guess, and put some emphasis on what you want. For example, imagine I have a very simple sentence. I'm watching Netflix. But I want to sound smart. And I turn this simple sentence, I'm watching Netflix, into something more complex. It is Netflix that I'm watching, right? You use this it phrase, introductory phrase. Now you have two clauses. It is Netflix, main clause, that I'm watching is an adjective clause. But the emphasis is now on Netflix. Instead of saying I'm watching Netflix, it's Netflix that I'm watching. Okay. It's an it type of cleft sentences. Remember, cleave means to divide one into more than one. WH cleft starts with WH words. What I'm watching is Netflix, right? What I'm watching, noun clause, is Netflix. Reverse WH cleft. Netflix is what I'm watching. You like it so far, eh? Yeah. All cleft. All I was watching was Netflix. Now the emphasis on all. All I was watching was Netflix. Eat because cleft. If I'm watching Netflix, it's because I'm bored. Right? The focus is on if I'm watching Netflix. It looks like it's the only reason for me to watch Netflix. They're cleft. There is a movie on Netflix I want to watch. Instead of saying I want to watch a movie on Netflix, I'm saying there is a movie on Netflix I want to watch. And inferential cleft, right? When we make inferences, we make guesses. In this way, this type of cleft sentences we use to show that there could be some misunderstanding and you want to clarify it. It's not that I'm bored. It's just I have nothing to do. I think it's actually, it could be semicolon after bored. It's not that I'm bored. It's just I have nothing to do. right? So don't take me wrong. I'm not bored. I just have nothing to do. So ladies, your feedback, what do you think about all of this?
So sometimes I think it sounds hilarious or something, because it's really hard to read, and it's so common on the SAT, I guess, because there are lots of
Yes.
sentences, and on the actual SAT, I remember there were really like weird sentences that are kind of the same.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. But now you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Now
Yes.
you know what it is. And again, I'll be happy to share this PowerPoint presentation with you if you need it, right?
Yes.
And let's analyze one passage. It was on Anti-Federalist papers, and see. First, we will analyze it for the content and also for the structure of those sentences, and try to, turn those cleft, with their convoluted, cumulative sentences into something more readable, something that, well, today we would, let's say, the way we would express ourselves today. So let's see. Let me just give you a document. I'm going to share a document with you so you can open up on your computers. Just a sec. No, I think actually you can edit it. So I'm sending it to you in the chat. Document. Okay. So passage 1 is excerpted from a published letter written by an author known only as the Federalist farmer. The Federalist farmer is an anti-federalist. So we are not sure who it is. Maybe it was a Southerner from Virginia, Richard Lee, but we are not sure. It could have been Melancton Smith. So again, we don't know, but it's anti-federalist paper. That's all we need to know. Okay. Passage 2 is an excerpted from a published letter by Agrippa, the pseudonym of James Winthrop. Winthrop was a part of the anti-federalist movement as well. So both of them are anti-federalists. Right? And again, you see 1787, you know exactly what was happening in America back then. The country was being created. Let's start. Let's see, first of all, the sentences. And you tell me what you think the type of sentence it is. Our object has been all along to reform our federal system and to strengthen our governments. But a new object now presents. Look at this. A new object now presents. Sounds a little weird, right? Okay. Do you see anything interesting about the first sentence, or is it okay? Can maximize.
I think it's weird that after the word alone, we have a comma before the two.
Yeah, our object has been all along to reform our federal system. Exactly, there shouldn't be commas at all, right? There should be our object.
Yeah.
Objects have been all along to reform our federal system and to strengthen our governments. Yeah, I don't know why they use it this way. Maybe the punctuation was different back then. I don't know. Maybe they played with the punctuation, right? But yeah. So, but now, as we have read it, what do they say? What does that sentence mean? What would you say? What would you say? You can type up the answer in the chat or speak up. Lian and Jan, if you want to.
So there was an obstacle to reform and to strengthen the government because a new object now presents. I don't know, what does this mean?
Object like a task, probably, right? They mean we now have another task, right? Let's continue. The plan of government now proposed. Look, the plan of government now proposed instead of the proposed plan of government is evidently, Len?
Nothing.
Is evidently calculated totally to change in time our condition as people. So what's he saying?
So it was supposed to change the condition of people. I don't know, the plan.
Yeah, he's saying, well, we're talking about the constitution, the drafted constitution, 1787, right? And he says, the plan of government now proposed, in other words, the proposed plan of government, the proposed constitution is going to change the lives of people. That's what he's saying, right? But again, you see how they change the word order. Instead of saying is evidently to change in time our condition as people, as a people, by the way, as a nation. Instead of being 13 republics under a federal head, it's clearly designed to make us one consolidated government. Look at this. This is an affronted adverbial. Instead of saying it's clearly designed to make us one consolidated government, instead of being 13 republics under a federal head, they start with adverbials. Instead of being 13 republics under a federal head, is designed to make us one consolidated government. You see? And you get some students, and not you, but weak readers get lost here. And they try to find the main idea here, but it's not here. It's here. It's designed to make us one consolidated government. You need to look for the main idea, for the main clause. Okay. Yeah. Whether such a change can ever be affected in any manner, whether it can be affected without convulsions and civil wars, whether such a change will not totally destroy the liberties of this country, time only can determine. Look at this, right? Where the main clause is at the very, very end, right? I think it's a periodic sentence. The main clause is at the end. So saying time can only determine whether such a change can ever be affected by in any manner, whether it can be affected without convulsions and civil wars, or it will not destroy the liberties of the country. Yeah. But makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So what would you say this paragraph is about? What is he saying for the most part?
About plans of government.
Be more specific. How does he view those plans, this new constitution? You know, he's anti-federalist.
Probably he sees as something negative. So the plan
totally change our lives, right? One consolidated government, he doesn't like it. Again, remember, northern states and southern states had very little in common. It's like, you know, it's like a, unite Russia, France, and Germany, and Italy, and I don't know, Norway, and let's have one government. Like, excuse me, why? Right? Well, because the aliens are going to come and invade us. Oh, okay, if the aliens are coming, okay, maybe we will unite, but that's it. Okay, yeah. Then he says, right, it can actually cause a civil war, right? Right? It will destroy our liberties. Okay, let's continue. The Confederation was formed when great confidence was placed. Remember Articles of Confederation. But the Confederation was formed when great confidence was placed in the voluntary exertions of individuals and of the respective states He calls colony states, the 13 states, and the framers of it to guard against usurpation, remember, usurpatio. So limited and checked the powers, right? Checked powers, limited powers of the government. They wanted the states to be stronger. We find, therefore, members of Congress urging alterations in the federal system almost as soon as it was adopted. He said, we were happy with the Articles of Confederation. What now? Right? You're going against checked powers, right? You're going against the rights of those respective states. He's obviously not happy. Right? The first interesting question is how far the states can be consolidated into one entire government on free principles. Well, I would personally say it differently. Instead of saying the first interesting question is how far the states can be consolidated, I would say I'm really curious how far the states can be consolidated, right?
Yeah.
The happiness of the people at large must be the great object with every honest statesman, and he will direct every moment to this point. Right? Instead of saying people should be happy, the happiness of people will be important. Yeah. Right. Any question? Good.
Yeah. Can I ask you, what
Yeah.
does it mean, government on free principles? Free principles, what does it mean?
The first interesting question is how far the states can be consolidated into one entire government on free principles. Well, I think they're talking about democracy. They're saying, how can we get democracy if we have a strong federal government? I mean, a strong central government. Again, they were not familiar with democracy, with a strong central government back then. They were afraid of a king, of a tyrant, right? He says, if we are so situated as people as not to be able to enjoy equal happiness with advantages under one government, the consolidation of the states cannot be admitted. Again, look at this. Another type of periodic sentence when we have main clause at the end. The consolidation of the states cannot be admitted. Why? If we cannot enjoy equal happiness and advantages under one government. See?
Yeah.
Touching the federal plan, I do not think much can be said in its favor. Instead of saying, I disagree with the proposed constitution, he says, I do not think much can be said in its favor. The sovereignty of the nation without coercive and efficient powers to collect the strength of it cannot always be dependent on to answer the purpose of government. What did he just say?
So it is impossible to make one government without some without the power on the people. I don't know.
And in a Congress of representatives of sovereign states, there must necessarily be an unreasonable mixture of powers in the same hands. Instead of saying, if you want to have a strong government, you will have unreasonable mixture of powers in the same hands, he says, and in the Congress of representatives of sovereign states, there must necessarily be an unreasonable mixture of power. Does it make it easier for you now that you understand what they were doing, what type of sentences they were using? Does it make it easier for you to understand or not? Not yet.
Yes.
How do you feel? Is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Again, pay attention to the final. You see what type of sentence is that? Pay attention to this. Highlight it, underline it. This is the most important idea. Everything else, I always tell my students, whatever is between commas, get rid of it. It's extra. First, understand the main point, then remove those whatever lines that you crossed the non-essential sentences or phrases with, and then read the rest. So what's he saying so far about the constitution, proposed constitution? Ladies.
So probably it's really hard or even impossible to make one nation. So because it's really hard to enjoy equal rights for people without any like power.
Losing power, right?
Yes.
And remember this, the principle of federalism is very frequently referred to in different passages on the SAT, not only like of the end of the 18th century, right, when the Federalist Papers were written, later on as well, right? Well, we'll see. We know the Civil War in America over slavery. Also, why did it happen? Well, because the southern states said, we are done with this. We don't want to be ruled by the president, what was Lincoln, who is against slavery. We have a different way of life. We want slavery. We depend on slavery, and they formed a confederation. It happened 100 years later. These discussions were held, right? Okay, next. Independent of the opinions of any great authors, again, independent of the opinions of many great authors, again, something affronted, something comes before the main clause, that a free elective government cannot be extended over large territories, again. Yeah, get closer to the main point, they don't. A few reflections must evince. So he's saying that we need to think about something independent of the opinion of many great authors, those who wrote Federalist Papers. The free elective government cannot be extended over large territories. Right? He's saying many great men like John Jay and Hamilton and Madison say that we cannot have a free elective government. The territory is too vast. We need to have a strong elective government. That one government and general legislation alone never can extend equal benefits to all parts of the United States. He says, different laws, customs, and opinion exist in different states. That's true. Which by a uniform system of laws would be unreasonably invaded. But that's what he's saying, right? The federal government is going to invade the states, the rights of different states within those states. The United States contains about 1 million square miles, and in half a century will probably contain 10 million people, which he was right about. So you see how much easier it is for you to understand the main passage. Now you know what the anti-federalism was about. Yeah. Now what I want you to do, ladies, I want you to answer question number 1, question number 2. Yeah, number 1 and number 2. Can you please do it like, I don't know, they want to discuss it without me, just try to discuss it, Jan and Len.
Okay, so to read it out aloud or?
Sure.
Okay, so Len, I will start or you will start?
You can start.
Okay, so the main purpose of passage 1 is to provide information about plans to reform the federal system, highlight inconsistent government principles across multiple states, introduce plans for a new kind of government that differs greatly from the current one, question a proposal to consolidate power in a single federal system. So what do you think?
I think it's the third one.
Can you repeat, please? Sorry.
The third one.
The
C.
third one. Okay.
What do you think, Jan? What is the main point? What's his main point without looking at the answer choices?
So in my opinion, it's more about D. I don't know why, but he's not really sure about the plan and that it's gonna work. So, but
Right. He criticizes the proposed plan.
Yeah.
He doesn't really offer any alternative plan.
Oh my God.
Right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Just like the emphasis is different. Yeah? Okay. Let's do number 2.
So then you can read it.
Okay. Which statement about the federal government most accurately reflects the point of view of the author of passage 1? The current form of government has been in place for too long and increased consolidation is long overdue. The proposed changes would bring about more negative consequences than maintaining the current form of government would. A well-functioning confederation is impossible because independent states will never agree on policies. The uniform system of laws proposed by federal government will help unite the country as one nation. Let me think. I'm not sure.
And what do you think?
I think that line B and line C are kind of the same, but C is more about the passage 1 in my opinion. So
I think C is too extreme.
Too extreme? Yeah, I thought about this. So it's like very rude, maybe.
You see, I think at the very beginning, right, he says time will show. He's against the proposed constitution, but he says, right, whether such a change can ever be effected in any manner, whether it can be effected without convulsions and civil wars, time will determine. He doesn't say it's impossible, but he says it might change our lives. Right, and again, stay away from extreme answers.
So B.
Make sense?
Yeah. What about the first one? What is the right answer? I just didn't understand.
He's saying the opposite. He's saying the Articles of Confederation. Remember that kind of the circle of friends. He says this. The Articles of Confederation. Just a second here. The Articles of Confederation had just been passed. And now he's saying now we are switching to a different, structure of the government. We were fine, he said. We've been fine with the Articles of Confederation. We used the Articles of Confederation during the Independence War. So it's the opposite. It's been too, short of a time, not too long.
Okay.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you so much for staying focused. I know this is tough stuff. But interesting, I hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will send you those videos, and I highly recommend that you watch the Constitution PBS. It's amazing, I think, just to really not boring stuff at all, to understand how America was created and why it was created. Okay.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Let's read passage number 2, right? Do you want to read or do you want me to continue reading?
I don't know really, so it's up to you.
And then I continue. I just don't want to put you to sleep. Okay. Let us now consider, it's a different person, right? You remember it was Winthrop, right? James Winthrop, but he was also anti-federalist, an anti-federalist. Let us now consider how far the new system is consistent with the happiness of people and their freedom. So instead of saying the new system is inconsistent with the happiness of new people, he is now using that cleft sentence. Let us consider how far the new system is consistent with the happiness of the people and their freedom. So he's against this new system, obviously. It is the opinion of the ableist writers on the subject that no extensive empire can be governed upon republican principles. He's basically saying, so some of the smartest men, and obviously he's not saying that people who wrote the Federalist papers were lacked intelligence, that he obviously respects them. He's saying, they are saying no extensive empire can be governed by republican principles, means when we have a weaker central government, and that such a government will degenerate to despotism unless it be made up of confederacy of smaller states. Oh, I'm sorry, no, he's saying that, now it's his opinion, he's saying that any government will degenerate by despotism unless it's made up of confederacy of smaller states, each having the full powers of internal regulation. He's saying, well, we need to have a confederacy, can stay within the confederacy, right? Our rights.
Yeah.
This is precisely the principle which has whatever hitherto preserved our freedom, right? We've been free so far, he said, right? Why change it? No instance can be found of any free government of considerable extent which has been supported upon any other plan. Oh my gosh, no instance can be found of any free state. Instead of saying that, well, we don't have any examples of happy nations governed by, no, we don't have government by a strong central government. Large and consolidated empires may indeed dazzle the eyes of a disastrous spectator with their splendor, right? He's saying, well, he's probably referring to Great Britain. It was very powerful back then. And say, well, they look very powerful, right? And they are very powerful. But what the residents, how do they react? How do they live there? But if examined more nearly, are always found to be full of misery, like he's saying, well, right? People full of misery, experiencing misery in a powerful, rich country. The reason is obvious. In large states, the same principle of legislation will not apply to all the parts. He's saying, right? So some states will be more powerful than others. That's what they were afraid of. Like bigger states like Massachusetts or Virginia or New York could walk over smaller states, right? With less population and less territory. The laws not being made by the people who felt the inconveniences did not suit their circumstances. Well, instead of saying, if the laws are not paid by the people, if the laws are not made by the people won't enjoy those laws, he's just saying that this way. Complicated. It's under such tyranny that the Spanish provinces languish means do really badly. And such would be our misfortune and degradation. Again, saying that we will be unhappy under this tyrannic government. He's saying we're going to live just like Spain. We would live like Spain does right now. If we should submit to the concerns of the whole empire managed by one legislation. He's not even calling it republic. He's calling it like empire, like a British empire, right? He's saying, oh, under a strong central government, we are going to have a tyrant. To promote the happiness of the people, it is necessary, again, right? Instead of saying it is necessary that there should be local laws to promote the happiness of the people, he is using affronted adverbial and affronted adverbial to promote the happiness of the people. It says we need to have local laws, and it's necessary that those laws should be made by the representatives of those who are immediately subject to the want of them. We have to have local representatives. So I've been talking a lot. So what has he said so far? What are his concerns and what kind of government does he want? Ladies?
So I think that in his opinion, it would be really hard for people to have one nation, because it's really important to have like local laws, as he said, to have equal rights, to have equal, I don't know, facilities. And that's why he's against the opinion of the previous, with the previous opinion.
No, they are both anti-federalists. They're both against the central government.
So the first man said that it can be possible, so it can be in our near future, and this man said that, so they're like in favor of anti-federalism.
Yes, yeah, they are both anti-federalists. But
Yeah.
just maybe the second man is stronger, sounds stronger.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. It is impossible for one code of laws to suit Georgia and Massachusetts. Georgia, south, or south, Massachusetts, north. Very liberal historically Massachusetts, and conservative Georgia, right? They must therefore legislate for themselves. The laws of Congress are in all cases to be the supreme law of the land and paramount to the constitutions of the individual states. Right? He says, by the way, in America, every state has a constitution, every state has a Senate and House of Representatives, but local ones. And he's saying that's how we should have it, right? The new system is therefore a consolidation of all the states into one large mass, however diverse the parts may be of which it is to be composed. He says we should not have it, right? Because the laws are local interests are too different. The idea of an uncompounded republic on an average 1,000 miles in length and 800 in breadth and containing 6 million of inhabitants, all reduced to the same standards of morals, habits, and of laws, is in itself an absurdity that he's definitely extreme here. He says it's impossible. He's saying it's absolutely impossible to unite this whole nation into one. Remember, he's a Southerner, right? I believe so, I think. I might be wrong, but he definitely sounds like one. And contrary to the whole experience of mankind. Well, they didn't have a lot of experience of democracy back then. All that part, therefore, of the new system, which relates to the internal government of the states, ought at once to be rejected. So what's he saying? What's he saying? Yana, Lena?
So that it can be possible, and this will be maybe a violation for people to have one nation and one constitution.
Absolutely. Okay. Very good. So which idea is presented in passage 2 but not in passage 1? Lena and Yana, go ahead. It's your turn.
So who will read this then?
As you want.
Okay. So the proposed form of federal government will inevitably result in tyranny. The happiness and liberty of the people should be the priority of any form of government. The country is too large and has too many people for a federal government to rule effectively. It's better for states to govern themselves due to their differences in customs. So it's presented in but not in picture. So I need to think, probably Leon, you
think, absolutely.
Answer.
And you have the link, right? You can
Yeah.
go back to the passage if you need to passages.
I think that the right answer is A, because like in passage 2, his opinion was really harsh, and he mentioned the word tyranny, probably because in passage 1, I think maybe he inferred, but he didn't say that it will inevitably result in tyranny.
Exactly. Look at the words, right? The devil is in the details, right? Will inevitably.
Yeah.
Very good. The first one said time will show. Yeah, very good. Excellent. What about question answer choice answer choice B? The happiness and liberty of the people should be the priority of any form of government.
Was discussed in both of these passages.
Exactly. The country is too large and has too many people for a federal government to rule effectively. What about this one?
I think it was discussed in the first passage.
Exactly. Yeah. It is better for states to govern themselves due to their differences in customs.
I think it was in both passages. So
good, very good. In explaining their ideas on the federal government, both authors make use of which kind of evidence?
B.
B or C?
Yeah. I think it's C.
C, hypothetical scenarios, right? Yes, it says, imagine this, right? Imagine this, exactly.
Yeah.
They don't have any expert testimony. They don't refer to any specific people, right? And again, who could be, well, who could be an expert for them? I don't know.
No.
They were great men. They were the great men. They were the founding fathers, we call them, the people who founded the government, the country, the founding fathers. And like Henry Lee was a founding father, and Benjamin Franklin, and Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison also. Okay. Both passages argue that individual states what?
Is it A?
Exactly. They would not benefit from following the same set of laws. Exactly. They say their morals are too different, their histories are too different, their interests are too different, right?
Yes.
What about B? They are becoming too unwieldy due to lack of one unifying government. What about B? What do you think? Is it true?
I think no.
No, it's the opposite, right?
Yes. So it's weird.
Runs the risk of engaging in multiple civil wars over time. Does the second passage? Go ahead, Jan.
I think it was in passage 1 or.
Right, it was in passage 1.
Yeah.
It was a civil war. They didn't say about multiple. And passage 2 doesn't even mention it. Duplicate functions and should be eventually consolidated.
No.
No, that's not what an anti-federalist would say. It can reasonably be inferred from passage 1 that the author is what? What I want you to do is, I'm going to highlight it. Lines 1 to 2, our presents. That's the first thing. This I'm going to get rid of. The first answer. The people, 2, 4. The same. This is the second. For 6, instead government. They could have just said sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3. Instead government. 1, 2, 3, and 6, 9, whether determined. Okay. Let's just reread these sentences and paraphrase them one after the other one. Who would like to do it?
So probably we can do this, the first one for Lena, the second one for me.
Sounds good.
Our object has been all along to reform our federal system and to strengthen our governments, but a new object now presents. So I should paraphrase.
So what did they need to do until now?
They need to reform their federal system to strengthen their governments.
Continue.
The second sentence. The plan of government now proposed is evidently calculated today, totally to change in time our condition as a people.
People,
so the plan of government now is to change their condition as nation, as a nation.
So I can continue, yes? So instead of being 13 republics under a federal head, it's clearly designed to make us one consolidated government. So in this case, so this plan is to unite them as one nation. So that's why it's now not impossible, but the plan is to unite them. So they won't be they won't be 13 republics, like separate ones. Yes, they will have probably different laws. So I continue. Okay, sorry for my cat. Whether such a change can ever be effected in any manner, whether it can be effected without convulsions and civil wars, whether such a change will not totally destroy the liberties of this country, time only can determine. So I think he thinks that we will see in the future what will happen. And now So he's not sure that it will happen in a positive way without any problems like convulsions and civil wars. So that's why they will see.
Exactly, exactly. Very good. So, and let's look at the answers here. Number one, so it can be inferred, remember, right? If the information is not given, you need to make a conclusion, logical conclusion.
So in my opinion, it can be A because in the last sentence, he mentioned this.
I think it's either A or C.
He's concerned that increasing the independence of states will weaken local governments. Does he mention local governments in the first
governments? Oh no.
No, right?
That's not
It's true. That's how he feels, but not in the given lines, right?
Yeah.
Very good. Good job. Good job, ladies. Good job. It's A. In line 34, invaded. What does invaded mean? I think 34, I don't know where it is, would be invaded. What can we invade? We can invade a territory. We can also invade somebody's rights, right? So what do you think invaded can mean?
Ну, как бы подорвать чьи-то права.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Oh, that's here. He says, different laws, customs, and opinions exist in different states, which by uniform system of laws would be unreasonably invaded. Exactly. Weakened, right? Weakened, undermined. So the answer is?
Probably C.
Trespass. I think, yeah, but we don't say we trespass somebody's rights. Yes, you trespass on somebody's territory. That's true. Try again.
Or A.
Yes, it's infringed, right? It's an infringement of rights when you take away somebody's rights by kind of you're crossing the line. Yes, it's A. Okay. Almost there. By referring to the potential government as a despotism, the author of passage 2 implies that the proposal is what? What do you think?
So the word despotism is really harsh. So I think that probably
it's not B, obviously.
No, not unwise, right? Unwise is a little bit kind of what qualified, so to speak. It's just moderate.
I would say A, but it's really extreme.
He is extreme.
Yes, he's extreme because, yes, I think.
Yeah, and that's what they do. I think it's passage, right? What does he talk about this? Right. Right. It is the opinion of the able writers on the subject that no extensive empire can be governed upon republican principles and that such a government will degenerate to despotism. Exactly. Great. You're doing such a great job today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As always. How would the author of passage 2 most likely respond to the author's ideas about consolidation of powers in lines 25 to 35? Consolidation of powers. Somewhere here. Would he agree that it doesn't work?
Yes, I think.
They are in agreement, right?
Mhm.
Then?
Yes.
So then what do you think?
Should I read?
Yeah.
Question. How would the author of passage 2 most likely respond to the author's ideas about consolidation of power in lines 28-35 of passage 1? With disapproval, it's wrong.
Exactly. No, they agree.
With approval, because they support the
I'm sorry. I wanted to highlight it. I'm sorry. Continue.
with approval, because they help support his argument. With caution.
It's caution means like he disagrees with you. Be careful. You're thinking it, or you're thinking wrong.
Then it's B.
B. Yes, right? It's B.
Saying
the same thing, right? Remember in the final paragraph, he says that the idea, I'm going to highlight it here for you. The idea of an uncompounded republic on an average 1,000 miles in length and 800 of breadth and containing 6 million of inhabitants, blah, 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 is contrary to the whole experience of mankind, right? Yeah.
Right.
Right. So it's somewhere here. I just no, what was it? So it's, yeah. It was somewhere here. So the answers to, we can try 11, just slightly different with this format. Large misery, we need to find in parts to them. Large misery. Where he talks about Spain. Large misery. In parts. Where's in parts? Next time I'll highlight it before the class. In parts, yes. To them, the states. The states. Which of these statements do you think support the statement number 1? So of the passage number 1, that we should not limit the power, combine, consolidate the states. What do you think? This is A, this is B, this is C, and this is D.
I think that B is kind of the right one.
Why?
So because it said that in large states, the same principle, it's B, yes?
Yes, it is. Yes.
The same principle of legislation will not apply to all the parts. So it might be wrong for some parts because they need to have like separate rules. But
exactly. Very good. Yes. So how do you feel? I'm just going to stop the video. So next class, we're going to continue working in history passages. Ladies, stay on, please.